Recording. Good morning, everyone. Today is March 15th. I'm Mr. Sheridan. This is Zoology. We are going to start our unit on judging market hogs. So for those of you who are online, you're welcome to take these as well. I'll try to blow up the notes for everybody so that it's a full screen when you're reviewing them online. So let's start with our basics when we're talking about hogs. Pigs, hogs, swine, porcine, all the same thing. We're talking about pigs here. First thing we're going to start with is how we sex these animals. So a boar is an intact male. You are not going to see many of them in livestock judging contests. For the most part, boars are relatively irritable animals and don't like being together. So you're not going to see a lot of them, not going to see a ton of boar classes. Castrated males. So we've talked about steers, we've talked about wethers. In pigs, they're called barrows. B-A-R-R-O-W. A barrow is a castrated male pig. So in sheep, we talked about how whether a female sheep has had a lamb or not, we call her a ewe. But in cattle, we have heifers and cows, depending on whether she's had a calf. In pigs, it's more like cattle. We have what are called gilts. Gilts are females that have not had a litter of pigs yet. Gilt is spelled G-I-L-T. A little easier than the gilt your mom lays on you. A little easier to spell anyway. So we've got, and then sows, S-O-W. A sow is a female that has had a litter of pigs. You will not be judging any sows in a livestock judging contest. Everything that you judge will be either gilts or barrows. Particularly in market hog classes, you will see a lot of mixed classes. In market lamb classes, we see a lot of wethers. In market cattle classes, they're almost all going to be steers. In pigs, you're going to get a very balanced number of gilts and barrows. So one of the first things you need to be paying attention to when you walk up to a class of market hogs is how many gilts you have and how many barrows you have. We need to be sexing animals as soon as you walk up to a class. We've gone back and forth about the priorities of what we're looking for when we judge things. Again, these are all subjective, meaning that it's a bit of a sliding scale depending on the severity of an animal. If you've got one that is an absolute cripple, structural correctness goes relatively high at the top of the list if they can't get up to feed and drink. So, but for the most part, let's think about what the purpose of these animals is. We're taking these animals to slaughter. We're taking these animals to so that we can make all those wonderful pork products that we all enjoy. Bacon, sausage, ham, and the like. So we're going to focus on muscle and fat. We want these hogs to be relatively trim, meaning we don't want them to be crazy fat. The latest trend in hogs, though, is that they are a little more lenient in that fact. The good pigs that you'll see today, and we'll go over this as we start to judge more classes, they're a little more forgiving. We're not looking for the leanest pig you've ever seen. We should not be culling some of these pigs that are heavier in their finish just because they're a little bit fat. It could be a little bit more forgiving. The thing that we're focused on in the industry right now is width of skeleton. We want these pigs to be super wide in their chest floor. We want them to be bold sprung, bold bladed. We'll get to that. Wide down their top, bold in their rib, super wide at the ground. We're going to talk about at the ground, which is where we start judging these hogs. We've got to have these pigs blown up. We talked about how in cattle and sheep, we want smooth-shouldered, clean-fronted animals because it's a whole lot easier to have those calves. In pigs, your baby pigs are so small that's not as much of a concern. so we can have a little bit more open shoulders. As long as they are flexible and can still move, we want those pigs to be open in their shoulder. We want to be wide in their chest floor, being open fronted. So we're talking about width of skeleton. It's going to be pretty high on our priority list. Then we do need these pigs to be able to get up and walk across a set of concrete. Most hogs in production today are going to live most of their lives on concrete or slatted floors. So we've got to have these pigs that are structurally correct enough to be able to make it to 300 pounds and still be able to function structurally. And then we're going to talk about things, design, which would be related to balance and profile and pattern. So in cattle, we talk about balance. In sheep, we do a little bit, but we also talk about pattern. In hogs, we talk about their design. We want them to be level topped. We want them to be level hipped. We want their feet to be underneath them. And we'll get into what that means as we move through this. A swine class is the only one of the three between cattle, sheep, and hogs that we call a drive. For whatever reason, the hog people like using the term drive. So I placed the market hogs 1, 2, 3, 4, starting with the heaviest muscle, nicest balance hog in the drive. This is what we're calling that in a drive instead of a class. Those two words can be interchangeable when you're talking about pigs. The way that they mark hogs or that they identify them in a judging class. If you can imagine, cattle are all going to be on halters for the most part, or they're going to have some sort of marking, sometimes on their hips, sometimes they've got a collar on or something like that. In hogs, pretty much always they're going to have a mark across their top. Sometimes it'll be 1 mark for number 1, 2 marks for number 2, 3 marks for number 3, and then, but always 4 is going to be the unmarked pig. It just saves paint or whatever it is that they're doing. We're going to judge one class today where they have a mark over that pig's blade, over their shoulder, one right down the middle, one over their hip, and then one that's unmarked. So the one with the shoulder would be number 1. Down the middle would be number 2. On their hip would be number 3, and then unmarked is number 4. We're going to focus on a few different types of breeds. In market hogs, most of your breeds are going to be a mixture of crossbred pigs, and you may run into some pigs that are marked a certain way, but we shouldn't necessarily assume that they're that breed. But just to give you an idea, the Hampshire breed of pigs, we talked about those in sheep. There's a Hampshire breed of sheep as well. Hampshire pigs are black with a white belt over a belt, meaning a stripe of white, usually kind of right behind their shoulder blade, kind of right behind their front legs. That goes almost all the way around their body. Is a Hampshire marked pig. A Duroc, D-U-R-O-C, is a red pig. They usually have down ears, another way to identify them. And a Yorkshire, those are our 3 main. Most of your crossbreds are going to be some version of combining those 3 breeds. Yorkshires are white, and they're going to have erect ears. You're going to see a number of different white breeds. There's at least a half a dozen. Yorkshires are going to have erect ears. A couple things to keep in mind. We talk about terms. We're going to talk a lot about at the ground with pigs. We're going to evaluate these pigs from the ground up. For those of you who are looking for show pigs to bring to the fair and that sort of thing, the way we evaluate baby pigs especially, they've got to be wide at the ground. If you got a big old muscle up, expressive looking one, but they're narrow at the ground, they're never going to grow the way that you want them to. We've got to start with wide base, wide skeleton, wide bladed pigs, because those are the kind that grow up that way and they continue that width throughout their life. Their blade is referred to their shoulder blade. It kind of starts the width of that pig. Wide bladed, bold bladed hogs are going to be more open in their skeleton, and they're going to have more mass and volume than other hogs. Quite common term in pigs. And we'll talk about stout featured animals. I think we've heard that term before in either sheep or cattle, but it's really used a lot in hogs, referring to the circumference of their foot size, and how much bone that hog has. So we'll talk about stout featured pigs as we get into judging them. So this is kind of our overview for the first day. We've got a lot to go through here, and we'll spend the first 3 days on market hogs and going through and judging a few classes here. Keep in mind that all of these market hogs we need to be judging them as if they're going to market today. So some of them, especially in one class that we're going to judge today, are going to have some structure issues, that it's going to look like some of these pigs are limping around a little bit. Keep in mind that they're leaving this is their endpoint. So now that they've gotten to this point, we can forgive some of that structure. And if they're functional enough to get up and move around, then they're probably going to be okay. In some cases, that might not be as critical as some others. So we're going to stop the recording. Feel free to go in. We've got 2 classes to judge today. We'll look at those and answer any questions you have as we go through.